What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey, still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. If you don't like it, you can have that seatbelt. So, Digital Foundry has just published a new video detailing the differences between the last-gen versions of Star Wars Jedi Survivor and the current-gen versions on PS5 and Xbox Series. And I think that they just actually proved that there is a Nintendo Switch version in the works, in the pipeline, without even realizing it. So you probably ask yourself, well, how is this video going to prove that there's a Switch 2 version and they don't even mention a Switch 2? Well, first of all, why wouldn't there be a Switch 2 version? These are really late ports, and they just happen to randomly port them to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One almost 2 years after. And they're supposed to be focusing on their current systems. So that's that. But even besides that, there's one part early in the video that convinced me that there's definitely a Switch 2 version of this game coming. And I've said this really since it was announced for last gen that meant that there was going to be a Switch 2 version coming. But I think this part right here kind of seals the deal. So Digital Foundry shows the file size comparison for Star Wars Jedi Survivor on the PS5 versus the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro versions. And there's a drastic difference in file size. So on the PlayStation 5, the file size was 151.4 gigs. This new version, this new port of Jedi Star Wars Survivor on PlayStation 4 is only 49.36 gigs. So they shaved a whopping 100 gigs off the file size in this port. And you're probably asking yourself, well, doctor, what does that mean? Like it's a lower end console. The texture quality isn't going to be as big. They don't need this large file size. Yeah, they might not need a file size as big, but 100 gigs less? Ask yourself this. Since when do third parties on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, since when did they care about shaving file size down? Since when? Since when? 49 gigs? You know how many games on the PlayStation 4 dwarf 50 gigs? And you're telling me that they ported a current gen game to PlayStation 4 and somehow it's a smaller file size than a normal PlayStation 4 game? Does that make sense to you? This right here proves that not only is this game coming to Switch 2, but these ports may have in fact been ported from the Switch 2 version. And I think that this small file size hints at that. So the current belief is that the Switch 2 will have 256 gigs of flash memory. And while that's a lot of memory for flash memory, it pales in comparison to the storage size on the last gen consoles, let alone the current gen one. So it's not a lot of memory. It's a lot as far as flash, but in the brand scope of things, it's not a lot of memory. And so just like with the Switch, developers are going to have to be cautious and kind of tech savvy about their file sizes when it comes to these games. And you've seen the same thing happen with the Switch. And a lot of the file optimizations that came to later on to PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 even, and Xbox Series versions of games came after Switch ports. They made the Switch port, and then it's like, oh, you know, we shave this. We don't necessarily need this. We can optimize this. And they took those optimizations and they applied them to the newer versions. Like the same thing happened with, say, the Witcher 3, right? Well, if there was no Switch 2 version of this game and no reason for them to have this file size so low, the PlayStation 4 version and the Xbox One versions could have used a larger file size to have better asset quality, to have better looking textures. If this game, if there was no Switch 2 version of this game, I can guarantee you that the PlayStation 4 version would have a way bigger file size than 49 gigs. They could have used that extra 100 gigs that they shaved off the PlayStation 5 version to actually have at least slightly better visuals. So I don't buy it. I think that this small file size, and this is considered small for a PlayStation 5 current gen port to PlayStation 4, I think that alone confirms that there's definitely a Switch 2 version coming, and this is probably ported from that version. Now, the good thing is the Switch 2 is a lot more modern than the PlayStation 4, and technically it's more modern than the PlayStation 5 too. It's not, don't get it twisted, not more powerful, more modern. It has more modern features. So this version of Star Wars Jedi Survivor will be pretty interesting because based on that, I guess it should be in between visually what these ports look like. Whether the Switch 2 version will end up having ray tracing or not is a toss up. But I think that the file size alone on these last gen versions proved that there's definitely a Switch 2 version coming. And I know a lot of people are going to be watching this video and be like, oh man, that is a reach. Yeah, and when it gets announced for Switch 2, I'm going to reach for that seat. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I fully expect this to pretty much be a launch title for Nintendo Switch 2, and wouldn't be surprised if Fallen Order also comes. Maybe it would be a double pack or something, considering the last gen versions of this game aren't full price. So maybe they'll do a double pack for Switch 2 for 70 bones. Who knows? But let me know what you guys think in the comments.